So welcome to the Property Project podcast. We will get there in the end. And you're here with Sean and
Cindy. Yes, we're back for another episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited for this one because this one's about deal sourcing. We say deal selling, but it's actually deal sourcing.
I think it's deal sourcing.
That's correct terminology.
It's not just about selling. It's sourcing the deal.
Sourcing it.
You're doing so much more than that.
Yeah. And I think this one's key. It's actually not like a recent experience that we've experienced at the moment. This is like historical stuff, should I say, or things in the past. So I'm not as emotionally attached to it at the moment. So I think I can respond in a way that's more logical at this moment in time. But yeah, I think for those who don't know, do you want to kind of explain what deal sourcing is and the art of selling deals?
Yeah, so deal sourcing is where you source deals for investors who are looking to expand on their portfolio. They're looking for specific types of properties in ways to invest. You go out and obviously source these deals through either letting agents, estate agents, or landlords, or just find deals from going through networking events and be able to provide these opportunities to investors that may not have the time, may have the capital in order to put certain the money in, and also you want to be able to build connections. So that's how you provide that service to investors.
Yeah, it's definitely a way of adding value to somebody who is looking to invest in properties. And you can do that in various ways, through land deals, through rent-to-rent deals. There's so many ways you can add value. BRRs, there's so many ways.
So
and again,
BRRs are buy, refurbish, refinance. And then the last one is rent as well. But the people always say BRR, buy, refurbish, refinance.
Yeah.
But
and we'll go into that. I think we'll probably do an episode with like each strategy going into detail and ways you can add value to investors if you're looking to do that. And I think the best thing about deal sourcing is the connections that you make, the networking, but also there's a side where you can make a lot of money in a way that you probably wouldn't imagine unless you're in it and you're doing it. It's a way to build capital fast. I always think if you master the way of connecting with people, networking, building relationships, and then add that to actually being great at providing properties and sourcing properties that give good returns, you can make a lot of money from this. And there's so many people out there. Again, I'm not going to do names because we haven't asked anyone if it's okay to mention. But there's so many people that we follow on Instagram that we've made connections with who are doing amazing with the deal sourcing side. And that's what they've kind of created a business around. So their business portfolio isn't necessarily around rent-to-rent strategies or anything like that. They've created a business solely on selling deals to investors. And it's really great to see because they have a lot of returning customers. But there's also the flip side to that where people just hear about deal sourcing and think they can do it just because it sounds easy. It sounds like, you just make connections with people.
There's an art to it. There's a fine art to it.
It's science. It's a science. I think there's a formula to it. You can't just pick someone, find a property and match it. It needs to make sense for the investor. But it needs to make sense return-wise. It needs to fit in with their portfolio. It needs to fit in with their finances. It needs to be, you can't provide somebody who's a newbie in property and, barely has any funds or has just a setup cost for rent to rent and then provide them with a BRR deal. It's not going to make sense. So you need to make sure that you align it well with your investor. You need to know your investor. That's the key thing. And it's sometimes what a lot of people miss is knowing your investor.
Knowing your investor, because what you don't want to do is find a property that you sourced, hand it over to an investor who's got no experience, and then now they've messed up the investment. One, they're probably looking at you because now they're going to think that you gave them a bad investment, whereas it's actually their fault. And then also you've got the either say landlord or the vendor who you then obviously need to build a rapport with the estate agent. So there's all these relationships that you need to manage. And it's not just a one-time thing, it's a constant thing that you just have to manage it right. And obviously that's where the formula comes in. And in terms of like managing all these relationships right, that's what will then give you the answers that you need and give you the produce the what's the word I'm looking for? Produce the
results?
There we go.
So
Don't know
smart.
what's going on.
I'm so smart.
Produce the results that you're looking for as well.
Yeah. I think we have, in terms of ourselves, we've sold quite a few deals in a short space of time as well.
Yeah.
I think we set ourselves a target, and our area that we picked was Brighton, and we sold a lot of deals in Brighton and made quite a bit of money in that time.
We sold the BRR as well.
Yes, we have sold a BRR. I need to catch up with him actually, and it would be so nice to bring him onto the podcast. For him to kind of share his story and how he got into property, because again, it was about connecting, and we've actually built long-term relationship with our investors. A lot of our investors we chat to like they're friends, to be honest, and they are like, we build a connection. It's a relationship. We want to be able to give you a service that you're going to be happy with, but also know us as people, because you might want to come back not just to get another deal from us, but you may struggle with setting up your property or knowing the demand in the area, or have questions about certain things, like how you can, advertise it, how you can connect to other companies. So we create that lifelong, that long-term, not lifelong, but long-term relationship with our investors as well, which is so important.
Because I think a key thing as well, which a lot of people tend to miss, is the fact that deal sourcing can be anything, in terms of you can fit yourself. It's all about fitting yourself in a position. Now, if someone's got, say, capital in order to invest, but they don't know how to, they don't have the time, you expanding your knowledge in order to fit yourself into that. So imagine if you've got money and I tell you you want to go and do something, but you don't know how to, and I tell you I know how to. I don't need money in order to put myself in that position. All I need is the knowledge. And that's what people need to need to remember, that it's always a knowledge thing. You don't worry about the fact that you haven't, say, got the money. You could actually start deal sourcing with literally no money. Deal
sourcing does not require any money whatsoever. You might need shillings to travel. And to buy food on the way, because you're doing a 3-hour journey to do it to a viewing. But it requires no funds whatsoever, except for setting up your company and, like I said, your travel. And so that's one of the best things about deal sourcing. It's so simple to get into if you have the right knowledge and surround yourself with the right people.
When we say that it doesn't require any funds, we're not going to say that, no money down, and we're going to kind of say that it's not about that. It's about the knowledge. You got to make sure that you know what you're doing, because when you don't know what you're doing, that's when you spend unnecessary money. And
I think deal sourcing is more so about time, though. It's about spending time. I do think it is a strategy where you can put no money down. That's the whole point of deal sourcing.
But we don't want to give people the false narrative that it's a no money down thing, because sometimes it is, but it all just depends on how smart you are with the knowledge that you've got.
In what situations? Because I would kind of disagree to an extent. I know nothing is no money down, but what examples could you give where you possibly could be spending money in order to start up this business of deal sourcing?
So like you said, traveling. So again, there's deals.
Huge cost.
There's deals everywhere. We live in London. So when it comes to BRR deals, they are there. Sorry, but the capital is much more. So then what happens is a lot of people tend to look for deals, or more deals that people want outside of London. If you don't drive, some people don't drive. You're having to get train tickets or coach tickets or whatever mode of transport you want to take. If you're driving, you got to get petrol. Keep topping up. And trust me, when I say you got to keep topping up,
oh gosh,
it's religious. Full tank. 30, 40 pound, 50 pound. That's not full tank, but you know what I mean. And little things like that you have to keep. People don't tell you about those things. They make you think that, you
can literally walk out on the road and be like, does anyone have a house for me to rent today?
Does anyone want to buy a deal for me? No. The bits that are free are, marketing yourself.
Because you have Instagram, social media, obviously.
You have, as you say, social media, Facebook and all that, LinkedIn. You have all those things. You can, again, attend networking events, which cost money again, which does cost money.
You can go to the free ones.
You can go to the free ones.
The ones of value.
Yeah.
I think you should pay for networking events because you'll take it more seriously as well. And anything that you do pay for, if you operate like the average person, where if you spend something, you know the value of it.
Yeah.
If you spend on a networking event, you will go in there wanting to network rather than like shying away in the corner.
Yeah, hiding behind the pillar, at the back.
You know, just going there to be like, I went to a networking event. You want to go there and you want your name to be memorable, and you want people to be contacting you the next day or even that evening of or that day. So you're absolutely right. There are certain costs that you need to keep in mind for deal sourcing.
Yeah.
However, it is the cheapest way, I should probably say. Maybe no money down is probably the wrong word.
Yeah.
But it's the cheapest way to get into property. It's the most easiest financially to get into in order to put your foot into property.
Yeah.
So in terms of steps, if somebody was coming up to you to say, or came up to you to say, I want to get into deal sourcing, what should I do? What would you say they need to do? What would they need to kind of have in place first?
So first of all, they need to have obviously a company. They need to have insurances. So,
the insurances are so key.
Yeah. So public liability and professional indemnity insurance. So those two are the key things the key insurances that you need. What else do they need? Data protection license.
Yeah.
And you also need to be part of a redress scheme as well. So there's 2 redress schemes that I know of. There might be more.
Yeah.
So it's the property redress scheme and the property ombudsman.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're both. You can join either one of them. I think they cost about like £200 plus, maybe more. Cost of living, you know.
Yeah.
But so you could join any of those, and then boom, you got a fully compliant. One other thing as well. Let me not forget, because if we're going to do this, we have to do it right. Anti-money laundering license.
Oh yeah, that's huge. And we'll probably tell you why that's important.
Yeah.
With a story in a second. Yeah. But yeah.
So
definitely.
anti-money laundering license, you have to make sure that you have. I believe it's illegal to not have it, to conduct business without it. So that's a process as well. But that's.
And all of this costs, which is why Sean corrected me on the no money down term. And I think we've always been funny about that term.
Yeah.
So for me to even use that today, there is always some sort of small cost with anything that you do. Nothing's ever going to be free, really, if you want to do it right. But
exactly.
Yeah, these are some of the costs.
Because if we're talking about costs now, we'll say, all right, setting up your company, how much would you say that is about?
I can't even remember the cost of that.
I know people say set up your company from like £10, but like when you
by the time you add on all those things in the little basket that you need,
you're probably hitting about £200. I think.
Okay.
You think more? Less?
I was thinking like it depends what you want and
depends
how you
on
want
what
to
you
build
want.
the company.
I'm going for like little fully comprehensive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So probably hitting about £200. Then your anti-money laundering is probably about £300, £300 to £400. Redress scheme is about, let's say conservatively, about £300. Data protection.
You add it all up, you're like, actually, this is a lot of money.
Did I say insurances?
Yeah,
insurance is probably about. Anyway, it depends on again who you go to. About about 100 to between 100 and 300 pound, depending on where you go. And then data protection is about £40. I think it's gone up to £40 now. So yeah, all those things they
add up. Before you could like co-source. And co-source means pairing with somebody who is completely compliant,
has all these things
in place, and you work with them and you share the profits, whether that be 50-50 or 60-40 because you're using their company. But now there's been some sort of like discussion, and I don't actually know if it's set in stone, so it probably is worth us finding out. But now you cannot or should not deal source without being compliant yourself. Before you could just pair yourself with someone who is compliant and do it through their company, and they would be the company who kind of receive the money and then they pay you after. But now there's been like talks about whether or not that is the right way to do it. So that's something for us to look into for ourselves, but also to be able to share. I think another thing as well, if you're wanting to set up your own deal sourcing company, is making sure that the first thing you do, or one of the first things that you do, is signing up to the networking events, because you're going to need to build an investors list. I always say, and something that we had from one of the mentors that we spoke to who were in property, so I'm pointing at you, pointing at you, but one of the mentors that we spoke to, they actually, and I think it really changed how many deals we sold after that, because we hadn't sold deals before this conversation, was picking what you're good at. So are you good at actually finding the deals that need to be sold? And you can't just find any old deal and be like, yeah, this is a great deal, and try to convince people. It's all in the numbers.
Yeah.
And there's a way to complete the numbers.
Yeah.
If the numbers are not adding up for an investor is not going to buy your deal. So don't bother lying about the deal.
Doesn't matter how much you love
it doesn't matter
the deal, how many times you went to go view it.
Yeah, investor is not buying that deal. And even if you have a newbie in the game, they will quickly find out that the deal isn't as it's supposed to be, because they will speak to other people. Newbies always have somebody that they speak to or get advice from, and they will run that deal with through another company or with another company, and a company will say that's a really crappy deal,
or you'd probably prefer that to happen before you sell the deal. The worst case scenario is that you sell the deal and then things go wrong, and then they come back, and then obviously in this game, feedback and testimonials and things like reviews, they're key for proving your worth to people who are yet to work with you. Do you know what I mean? So that's not what you want. You don't want someone to come back and say, actually, this person sold me a deal, and they made it seem like the numbers actually stacked, but they didn't. And then I ended up losing on my investment.
Like $3,000 on an investment.
Do you know what I mean?
That's just to start up. Like, that's not even you actually setting up the property and stuff. That's just a start up. That's a start up.
Yeah.
So I think, definitely networking. But I think the key thing that mentor said to us was that you choose what you're good at. Are you good at finding the investor, building the relationship, building the connections, making sure you're making those trustworthy connections that when you sell a deal, you're pleasing that investor? Are you able to do that? Or is your strong point or, your strength finding the deals? I think pick one. That is my biggest advice to anybody who wants to get into deal sourcing.
You say pick one to start with.
No. Definitely, by all means, as you get stronger and you develop in your skills within the art of deal sourcing, pair them together. That's how you make the most money. Being able to provide both the investor and the deal. That's what's going to solidify you in terms of getting the money. But as a starting point, I would practice getting investors, noting down things that are so small, but people forget, getting down full name. Getting down email, contact details, getting down the area of, that they would like, or the areas of interest. Then getting down the money that they have. What investment do they have? What money do they have to play with? All of those things are really key, and people don't always do when they go to networking events. And I can say that because I was one of those people. I would hide behind you, let you do all the talking. We wouldn't know how to take down investor details. So somebody would say, oh yeah, I'm looking for a property that we can, house supported living. Supported living. Yeah. And we'd be like, yeah, great, we're going to look for that for you. And then go home and be like, what's that guy's name?
I was going to add on to what you're saying as well. Another thing that we need to make sure as well is that you actually follow up on them. The next day. Because if you don't follow up on them, then that conversation basically didn't happen. You know what I mean? So I think when we first started, again, even if we did manage to take down people's details, we weren't following up on them. I remember one of the first networking events that I went to, I had someone who was telling me all the places that they want deals and that they're willing to pay for it. But because I didn't have other things in place, I wasn't able to act on that. Now, I wish I could go back and have that conversation tomorrow. Because I know exactly how I would pounce on that and the value that I'll be able to give to that person. Honestly.
And that's another big thing, is being able to trust the value you can bring, because people will question the amount that you are charging for your sourcing fee. The sourcing fee is basically how much the investor is going to pay to have access to the deal. So you've got to put in, I guess, boundaries, restrictions in terms of the information, limiting the information that you do give to the investor, but enough information that they can make and kind of get an understanding as to whether this would be a good deal. I.e. location. Of course, you've got to give them location. You've got to give them area. So if I find them a rent-to-service accommodation in London, I might say that it's in London, or I might say it's in Croydon, but I won't give the road or the door number, because that means they have easy access to find that property. And then what's the point of paying you? So you need to be able to have that balance of knowing what information you should share, and then also knowing at what point you reveal the rest of the information. Because if you do that too delayed, it could impact that relationship with the investor. And also you may not get paid if they can't do their full research on the property.
Yeah. So question then. So would you say that deal sourcing is passive?
I wouldn't say it's passive. I think a lot of people say it's passive, but I would say it's definitely not, because you put in it's a lot more time. It's for somebody who has not as many commitments, I think, initially. I mean, for those who have commitments and can deal source and be raking up that money through deal sourcing, amazing. But somebody has to be flexible. Somebody with a flexible schedule, time, patience, because you're up and down, the country. You're getting so many no's every day. If you were to write down, and you should write down, how many no's you're getting
in a
before
day.
You get a yes from investors, from letting agents, from landlords, you will realize that it's going to take a lot of patience and it's going to take a strong mindset. So no, I don't think it's passive. I think it does require a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of patience. But I can understand why people would say it's passive. But personally, I just
don't think it is, because I feel like for it to be passive, you have to have your formula set up.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain way of working that just makes it passive for you. Again, everyone's situation will be different. But again, I feel like with deal sourcing, you need to be the one to view these places. You need to be the one to run the numbers to make sure they work, because sometimes when if you're co-deal sourcing with someone else, like another co-sourcer who's viewed the property, you want to believe in them that they've conducted the search in order to give to your investor. You don't want to give your investor a deal that you haven't even set.
Together,
do you know what I mean? So the due diligence that you have to put in it, that's what takes it away from being passive.
Yeah.
And to be fair, if you are raking in money and you're doing that, there is a good side of obviously the due diligence, because you're going to different places, you're seeing different places, you're speaking to different people, making connections as you're again putting in all these things. Because when you go to an area and you're checking to see where the nearest hospital is and other house prices in that area, you might actually come across other estate agents that are you build a rapport with and things like that. So it's keeping on top of all these other things while also doing the due diligence that you can make a good deal out of it. Do you know what I mean? It then becomes passive when you have, say, people kind of like maybe doing these things for you that you already do trust, and you already know. You're creating a team that you already know that they stick to the standards that you also set out when you started doing it as well. You know what I mean? So
it's a reviews business. You are not going to get an investor to work with you if you've got loads of reviews that say, actually, the deal fell through and I never got my 3K sourcing feedback, or I was trying to get in touch with the deal sourcer, but actually contact was cut after payment was made. We've heard them situations. And we're one of them people who'd be like, oh my gosh, did you hear about that? Did you know about that? And
I would never thought that
so-and-so would have done that. And it gets stuck in your head, because then I really appreciate it's difficult, because with sources, a lot of the time you're using that capital to build something else. So I understand, and what you've got to be mindful of, both the part of the audience who are investing through a deal sourcer, or the part of the audience who will be deal sourcers or are deal sourcers. What you've got to remember is so much can go wrong that is out of the deal sourcer's control.
It's funny, because every time that I think that I want to add something to this conversation, you then come out with it.
Does that bring value?
Oh, sorry. I was more going off the fact that
we're always in sync. Is that what we do? I was with that.
Are you sure?
I got that.
All right,
I did get
anyway, but yeah, carry on.
That I think. What was I saying?
You were saying that so many things can go wrong.
So many things.
The landlord. I'm talking about rent to SA deals, or the landlord or the vendor could drop out at any moment. The estate agent could just
cut you out and go to someone else. And not even communicate. Because I was about to just say something about estate agents, but let me just go. That's very
the investor might actually decide to pull out or just not communicate. The co-sourcer might not do anything. The co-sourcer might decide that they haven't given over certain amounts of information properly. The property might actually not be up to standard of what you've decided or what you've seen. Do you know what I
the
mean?
investor might try to cut you out as well.
There's so many
it can impact both the investor and the deal sourcer, and there's so much that can go wrong. So I do kind of want people to be mindful of like not just going in with like massive aggression of like, oh yeah, you said you were going to do this and then this, you didn't fulfill that, because so much can go wrong, because we can't forget that securing these deals is, you have to rely on people. And people are not always reliable. So just to be mindful of that. And I know that, I mean, we're never going to say names on any of the podcasts unless we have someone sat with us who's happy to be spoken about. But we've had an issue as a deal sourcer. We've seen the pros of making fast amount of money in under like a month and a half. Like crazy amount. Like we're talking, it was a crazy amount at the time. And then
five figures, isn't it?
So
5 figures.
So it's like you can make a lot of money from it. So we've seen that. But at the same time, we've also had the incident where it didn't go so well. And you panic because you're like, what the hell do you do? And in all fairness, this wasn't actually our fault. I mean, I hold no responsibility. But the fact is, things like that can happen. And I guess explaining the story. And brain is foggy, so you remind me of. Do you know what I'm gonna?
To be honest, we weren't gonna go into the story yet, because that would be for another episode. But I'm just thinking that, again, while it's always good to have certain amounts of money coming into your account, that when things do go wrong or things need to be tended to, you then realize how sensitive a situation actually is, because when things need to be responded to, like say, an estate agent hasn't revealed certain information to an investor that you've passed the deal on to, that money that they've given to you, you now realize that, there's a chance that, or there's a danger that this money can be, it's no longer there. Do you know what I mean? So then you realize how sensitive that situation is. So again, it's just about keeping on top of those things. What would you say is the average price of a deal? No,
definitely. It depends what type of deal. I don't know why I said no, definitely, because I thought of the price in my head. I was like, But it depends on it depends on the deal that you are selling. So I would always say, if you're starting off and you're not quite sure about the value that you bring, or the types of deals that you're able to secure, or the length of contract, or there's something that you're not quite getting to make the deal like bon appetit. Do you know what I mean? Like, then you should probably be charging from like 2K. But the average sourcer for basic rent to rent, well, they're not basic deals, but the kind of rent to serviced accommodation deals, they're probably charging like 3K. And
so
then
BRRs,
and then BRRs a bit higher,
4 to 5K,
and then you get like the blocks. And they're crazy amount. They're like something like 10K, 7K.
Because you're probably looking at about maybe 3K per unit, and then obviously if they're taking all units together, you probably give them a little discount and stuff like that. So you're probably looking at ranging between 2 to 5K per deal, which is good, because for most people that's a month's salary. For doing that, and a deal can be done in a day, it could be done in a week, it could be done in, you never know how long it always varies how long it takes to do a deal. Deal sourcing can definitely replace your income if you are consistent and you have the time to be fully focused on deal sourcing. But if you don't have that time and you're not consistent, it's probably it can still be done, but it's
probably not for you. It requires consistency. It really does, because you have to maintain relationships. So, and again, that's something that I struggle with sometimes, because I'm not always on my phone. And being a deal sourcer requires you being on
your phone
all the time, responding to
and being in the mindset to receive the no's as well.
Exactly. I know we're not going to go into the story today, but I think the reason I think it's quite key just to kind of speak about the anti-money laundering as well, and why that's so important, is because we did have a situation where we were concerned about where the income was coming from, and how that would impact us if that money was transferred into our account. And anti-money laundering was actually understanding that, and how that works was what kind of helped us.
Yeah.
And it's important to know, and again, I need to research on this properly, so do not take this as Bible, but if the money is transferred into your account, technically the bank is doing the anti-money laundering stuff between that transfer. So for anything to hit your account, the banks are always kind of checking
to see where
that money's come from, how that money's got there, the frequency of that amount, all of that kind of stuff is checked. So once it hits your account, that kind of check is completed. And whilst that does happen, I would always say, guys, be very clear about where the money's coming from, what account it's coming from. You know, you can't have somebody who sends half the money, half the sourcing fee at the start from one account, and then half from another account that's not even their name.
There's certain things that, again, when you do the anti-money licensing or anti-money laundering licensing, it's not just a thing of getting the license and then you're done. You have to. It's your responsibility to keep up with the license and the practices and understand what you need to do in order to remain compliant within that.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot to go in with deal sourcing, and I think we've probably got to do another episode on it.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many different types of episodes that we can do on this one.
But if you are wanting to get started in deal sourcing at any point, you are more than welcome to contact us.
Yeah,
and
drop us a
obviously
DM.
we'll have our information in the description below.
Yeah.
But by all means, reach out to us, and we're happy to kind of advise on best ways to get started.
Yeah.
You know, costs, things like that.
Yeah.
Insurances, how to cover yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, make sure you do just give us a little message, and we're happy to kind of support with that.
Yeah. And again, in the comments, if you let us know if you've had any dealings with a deal sourcer, or as a deal sourcer, any dealings that you've had with investors, good or bad, we'd love to hear them down in the comments. So yeah.
Guess that's
it.
with another episode.
Yeah. All right. Take it easy.